What if the woman you laughed at while she cleaned your floors turned out to own the legacy your family tried to bury? This isn't just a story about a maid walking into a millionaire's gala. It's a story about truth wrapped in silence, dignity hidden beneath a uniform, and the night one man's cruel joke turned into the most shocking downfall Beverly Crest had ever witnessed. Stay with us, because once you know who she really is, you'll never forget her name. The evening light poured like honey over the hills of Crestview Estate, where the Beaumont family's mansion stood like a monument to privilege. Inside, laughter echoed through the marble corridors as preparations for the city's most exclusive charity gala were underway. But in the servants' quarters, hidden behind a nondescript hallway, 35-year-old Mariah Lawson stood with trembling hands, holding a gilded envelope that didn't belong in her world. She had spent 2 years cleaning every square inch of the Beaumont residence. She knew the scuff marks beneath the grand piano, the smell of old cigars in the study, the way the crystal chandeliers caught fire in the light. But no one ever looked at her. She was a ghost with a mop. Until that afternoon, Jackson Beaumont, the heir to a powerful oil dynasty and master of spectacle, had strutted into the staff lounge unannounced. He tossed the envelope onto the counter beside her mop bucket with a smirk that held no kindness. "Charity galas this Saturday," he said, the corners of his mouth curled in theatrical amusement. "Dress code, maximum elegance. I assume you have something in your closet that won't embarrass the walls." The nearby guests, his friends, lounging around with flutes of $300 champagne, snorted with laughter. One of them clapped sarcastically. "Better remind the paparazzi to zoom in on her shoes." Mariah said nothing. Her fingers tightened around the envelope, but her posture remained still, graceful, even. Jackson leaned in closer, voice dipped in cruelty. "You should come. Let's see how far your courage takes you when the cameras flash." She understood instantly. It wasn't an invitation, it was a public trap. A joke disguised in gold foil. A chance for the elite to watch her squirm beneath designer lights she wasn't meant to stand under. Later that evening, as she vacuumed the velvet staircase, she overheard Jackson whispering to his wife, Celeste. $1,000 says she doesn't show. And if she does, she'll run back to the laundry room within 15 minutes. Celeste sipped her wine, smirking. She'll probably wear something borrowed, feel like dirt, and trip on the carpet. But what neither of them knew, what no one in that grand estate knew, was that Mariah Lawson had once walked those very ballrooms under a different name. A name erased. A bloodline denied. That invitation wasn't just a setup. It was the door she'd been waiting for. And on Saturday, Mariah wouldn't just walk through it. She'd reclaim every step they thought she had forgotten. The whispers began the moment the valet opened the door to the vintage black Lincoln parked outside the Beaumont estate. Cameras clicked, heels halted, and cocktail glasses paused midair as Mariah stepped out, not like a maid hoping to blend in, but like a woman born to make entrances. Her gown shimmered beneath the estate's cascading chandeliers, a deep sapphire silk with delicate embroidery that caught the light like whispered defiance. It wasn't rented. It wasn't borrowed. And somehow, everyone in the driveway knew it didn't belong to someone like her. "Who the hell is that?" murmured Victoria Graves, wife of State Senator Donald Graves, tightening her grip on her pearls. "She looks like a damn movie star," her friend murmured back. "Wait, is that the maid?" Inside, Jackson Beaumont choked on his drink when he caught sight of her descending the marble steps. His smug composure cracked, just for a moment. But Celeste, ever the actress, plastered on a smile. "Well, I'll be damned. She actually came." Mariah's stride was elegant, practiced. She didn't glance at the stares or sneers. Her posture was regal, her chin held high, her gaze scanning the ballroom like someone returning to a place they once ruled. Jackson intercepted her at the center of the floor, the spotlight catching his grin. Too wide, too sharp. "Mariah, what a surprise. You clean up well." She met his gaze without blinking. "Thank you, Jackson. I appreciate the invitation. I never doubted you'd show," he said, voice dripping with mock sincerity. "After all, when someone like you gets a chance to stand in a room like this." "A person like me?" Mariah's voice sliced through his words, soft but surgical. "Please, go ahead. Finish your sentence." His smile faltered. For a flicker of a second, the arrogance in his eyes faltered into confusion. She wasn't playing the part he'd written for her. She was rewriting it entirely. "I mean," he stammered, "someone who's not usually in these circles." Mariah smiled. No fear, no hesitation. Just pure, unnerving serenity. "I grew up in rooms just like this," she said, her voice carrying across the polished floor. "Only back then, they called me by my real name." More guests began to tune in. Conversations dulled. Waiters slowed their steps. Jackson's jaw twitched. Your real name? She stepped closer, the distance between them evaporating like a fuse being lit. Yes, she said. Mariah Rose Kingsley. As in daughter of Alexander Kingsley, the man your father buried in silence. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Celeste's wine glass tipped slightly in her hand. And Jackson? He took a half step back. The woman he thought he could humiliate in front of California's elite had just reminded them all that bloodlines don't disappear, they wait. And some of them wait in cleaning uniforms. Want to see what happens when a woman the world tried to erase turns the tables with nothing but truth and dignity? This story is just getting started. Follow along to witness a transformation so powerful, it shakes the foundations of the elite and proves that no amount of wealth can silence justice. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us to see how one woman's quiet strength becomes the loudest voice in the room. The best is yet to come. The room held its breath. For a moment, the ballroom, so used to polished toasts and rehearsed laughter, hung in the silence Mariah had just carved open. Somewhere near the grand piano, a champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered. But no one looked. All eyes were on her. Jackson's smirk had vanished. In its place was something brittle, uncertainty. That's ridiculous, he finally said, voice strained. Alexander Kingsley died without heirs. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what your family wanted them to know, Mariah replied, her voice calm, deadly steady. But I'm here to correct the record. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a velvet box. A collective murmur rippled through the guests as she opened it to reveal a ring. Not just any ring, an ornate gold band set with a sapphire as deep as the ocean and engraved with the Kingsley crest. Gasps. That's the Kingsley heirloom, whispered Victoria Graves, barely audible over the wave of realization. Mariah held it up for the crowd to see. This ring was given to my mother by Alexander Kingsley when she was pregnant with me. He promised to recognize me, but he died under suspicious circumstances, and the family swept us under the rug. You, she said, turning to Jackson, inherited everything, and we were left with nothing. Celeste stepped backward, her face pale. Jackson, tell me she's lying. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I'm not just the maid you mock, Mariah continued, taking a step forward. I'm your half-sister. The room erupted in murmurs. Some guests covered their mouths in shock. Others instinctively distanced themselves from Jackson, as though afraid the scandal might stick. That's impossible, he said, forcing a laugh that no one joined in. This is a setup. You're just making things up. You really think I'd come here without proof? Mariah asked, her smile sharp. You've underestimated me your entire life. She turned and motioned toward the entrance. A woman in a tailored navy suit walked in, her heels clicking authoritatively on the marble. Behind her came a man in a dark gray blazer with a briefcase and a third figure, older, with a familiar face. The woman you see is Claire Renshaw, Mariah announced, lead investigative journalist for the Los Angeles Ledger. Next to her is Alan Cho, probate attorney. And that man, she paused as the final figure stepped forward, is Dr. Elias Monroe, your family's physician. Celeste gasped audibly. Dr. Monroe? The older man nodded solemnly. I treated Alexander Kingsley for years, and I falsified his death certificate at the family's request. The room fell into chaos. Guests turned to each other, whispering. Phones were out, recording everything now, not for gossip, but for history. Jackson looked as if the floor beneath him had cracked open. Mariah stood in the center of it all, calm, unmoving, untouchable. And for the first time, Jackson Beaumont realized he hadn't invited the maid to a party. He had summoned the reckoning. Dr. Elias Monroe adjusted his glasses, his voice trembling not from fear, but from the weight of finally speaking the truth. 20 years ago, he said, facing the crowd, I was asked by the Kingsley estate to sign a death certificate stating Alexander Kingsley died of natural causes. That was a lie. His blood work showed signs of arsenic poisoning, administered over several months. Gasps echoed like thunderclaps. A woman fainted in the back. Someone dropped a flute of champagne, its crystal shattering against the marble floor. Jackson stumbled backward into a chair, his once golden complexion now ghostly pale. You're insane, he barked at Dr. Monroe, but his voice cracked mid-sentence. This is slander. You have no proof. I do, Claire Renshaw said, stepping forward, her voice steady, journalistic. And every word of it is being recorded, both for publication and for legal proceedings. She opened her leather folder and pulled out printed documents, holding them high. These are medical reports. These, she said, tapping another stack, are financial records showing a series of suspicious transactions following Mr. Kingsley's death, specifically a transfer of $150,000 to Dr. Monroe's private account. 3 days after the funeral. Another gasp. Jackson whipped around to face Monroe. You said you'd keep quiet. I did. Until I couldn't sleep anymore, the doctor replied. Until I saw her. Mariah remained in the center of the room, unwavering, as if she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Because she had. In her heart, in her mind, and every lonely night when the past haunted her like a fever. Attorney Alan Cho opened his briefcase. We also have a copy of Alexander Kingsley's original will, he said, signed 2 weeks before his death. In it, he legally acknowledges Mariah Lawson, then Mariah Rose Kingsley, as his sole heir. That struck Jackson like a bullet. You can't do this, he snapped, rising to his feet. This was settled 2 decades ago. The estate was closed. Not if it's reopened on grounds of fraud, Cho replied coolly. Which murder qualifies for, last I checked. Mariah stepped forward, calm but electric. You thought the past could be erased, Jackson. That if you buried it deep enough under marble and money, it would stay dead. But you didn't bury the truth. You buried guilt. And guilt has a habit of digging its way back up. Jackson looked around, desperate. The guests who once toasted his name were now shifting away, whispering, recording. His empire, built on lies, was crumbling in real time, and the very woman he sought to humiliate was the one tearing it down, piece by piece. Mariah reached into her clutch again and connected her phone to the estate speaker system. A voice crackled through the room, Jackson's voice, recorded years ago. Monroe, shut your mouth. That girl is nobody. Her mother was a mistake. If you say one word, I swear to God, I'll make sure you never practice medicine again. Silence. Then chaos. And Jackson Beaumont finally understood. He hadn't just lost the room. He had lost everything. 6 months later, the halls of the Kingsley Corporation headquarters looked nothing like they used to. Gone were the intimidating portraits of oil magnates staring down from heavy gold frames. Gone were the stiff-backed leather chairs, the frosted glass that once separated the executives from the rest of the building. In their place hung framed photos of scholarship recipients, community projects, and employee appreciation days. The once cold, transactional environment now pulsed with something unfamiliar, hope. Mariah Rose Kingsley, now fully recognized as the rightful heir to the Kingsley legacy, stood in the center of the 35th floor corner office that used to belong to Jackson Beaumont. But where he had filled the space with excess and ego, she had filled it with meaning. On her desk sat a single framed photo of her mother, playing piano at a small recital. A soft reminder of grace, of beginnings, and of everything that had been stolen. Miss Kingsley, said Amanda, her executive assistant, stepping into the office. Forbes is downstairs. They're here for your leadership profile. Mariah turned from the window, where the skyline of downtown Los Angeles gleamed beneath a golden sun. Thank you, Amanda. Please let them know I'll be right there. Amanda, once a janitor in this very building, smiled. And don't forget, your meeting with the Education Grant Board is at 2. The new interns start Monday. Mariah nodded with warmth. Perfect. Let's make sure every new hire feels like they belong from day one. In just 6 months, profits at Kingsley Corp had increased by 38%. Not through exploitation or intimidation, but through trust. Employees were paid fair wages, promoted on merit, and given real opportunities to grow. For the first time, people were proud to say they worked there. But for Mariah, success wasn't measured in profit margins. It was measured in dignity. It was measured in the quiet conversations with employees who used to clean bathrooms and now managed entire departments. It was in the 2 young girls she'd adopted, sisters from a foster home, who now had bedrooms filled with books and laughter. Helena Beaumont had left the state with her children shortly after Jackson's arrest. But not before she stood across from Mariah, hand shaking, voice low. You could have destroyed us completely, she said. But instead, you protected my children. Thank you. Mariah had simply replied, children don't carry the weight of their parents' sins. They deserve the chance to be better. Dr. Elias Monroe, now employed as the company's wellness director, had also visited her that week. I never thought I'd live long enough to see justice served, he'd said. And I certainly never thought I'd find it in someone like you. You're wrong about one thing, Mariah told him. You didn't find it in me. You helped me become it. From scandal to salvation, the Kingsley Empire had been reborn, not in marble, but in meaning. And the woman who had once scrubbed its floors now stood as proof. Justice doesn't just change lives. It builds new worlds. The room was quiet, save for the soft clicking of a camera shutter. Across from Mariah sat the Forbes journalist, recorder on the table, pen hovering. The question was simple, but its weight settled like lead between them. Some people say what you did was revenge. What do you say to that? Mariah didn't flinch. She leaned back slightly in her chair, the city skyline casting long shadows behind her. She'd been asked this before, by networks, by strangers, even by former enemies looking to rewrite history with her name on their lips. She answered now the way she always had. Revenge, she said softly, would have been doing to him what he did to me, crushing him in secret, leaving him with nothing, walking away. She looked up, her eyes calm but piercing. Justice is different. Justice is truth exposed in daylight. Justice is making sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else again. The journalist paused, then asked, and what would you say to people still trapped in injustice, people waiting for their moment? Mariah turned toward the window, where down below, in the Kingsley Corp garden, employees laughed over lunch beneath trees planted with their names engraved on bronze plates. A girl with a clipboard, a new intern, was giving a tour to a group of community college students. Her voice was eager, proud. I'd tell them, Mariah said, that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so strong, so principled, so undeniable, that the people who tried to bury you have no choice but to watch you rise. Your pain becomes the prelude. Your dignity, the crescendo. She rose, signaling the end of the interview. The journalist thanked her and turned off the recorder. That night, Mariah returned not to the one-bedroom apartment where she once cried in silence, but to a home filled with purpose. The two girls she had adopted, Nia and Sarai, met her at the door with grins and markers in their hands. We made a banner, they exclaimed, showing her a messy, beautiful poster that read, "You're our hero." She laughed, pulled them close, and helped them finish their math homework. Later, she tucked them into bed, brushing curls from their foreheads, whispering stories about music and bravery and women who once had nothing, but left the world with everything. Before turning in, she checked the mail and paused. A letter, handwritten, marked from the federal penitentiary. From Jackson. He wrote, I know I don't deserve a response, but thank you for not raising your hand when I lowered mine, for teaching my children, even when I failed them. I destroyed everything, and you rebuilt something better. Mariah folded the letter. She didn't write back. Some stories didn't need more words, because the ending was never about revenge. It was about rebuilding a world where no one would dare laugh at a cleaning lady again, because now, the world would remember that the most dangerous person in the room is never the one in diamonds. It's the one they never saw coming. In a world that often mistakes silence for weakness and uniforms for insignificance, Mariah Kingsley proved something unforgettable. Dignity cannot be bought, erased, or mocked into silence. She didn't fight for revenge. She rose for justice. She didn't come to destroy. She came to rebuild. And in doing so, she became the kind of power that money could never manufacture, a force of truth, legacy, and grace under fire. Let this story be a reminder. You may be underestimated. You may be overlooked. But never forget, when you carry the truth, no one can write you out of your own story. If this story touched your heart, like the video. Comment below, what would you have done in Mariah's shoes? Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that prove the most dangerous person in the room is often the one everyone ignored. Because justice doesn't whisper, it rises.